Oh yeah, it's here. It only took one episode and we're finally at Dark Academia. This one's for you, Tumblr. It is very hot today where I live, so I don't have any candles burning, but I have some red wine I might get out later. And I am of legal age, so do not worry, do not copy me if you are under 18. But today, I have a pile of books next to me, and I just want to go through some of my favourites, and I want to talk about like my guilty pleasures, but also literature and classics and how you can get into them, because I study both literature and classics, and they're definitely two of my favourite subjects. Classics, I had no idea it would bring me so much joy, and it's such a small class, but I think more people would enjoy it. I don't think people really understand what it's about, and I just want to encourage people to go and, I don't know, study or pick up a book and just go outside their comfort zone, maybe. People often ask me, how do you ease into literature and stuff like that if you're not used to reading the heavy-handed Jane Austen type writing? And so what I like to say is start with poetry and short stories. My favourite poetry is either Emily Dickinson or Sylvia Plath. They write quite similarly, very lyrical, and I have my book of Emily Dickinson poetry, and I just wanted to read a little bit. Not many of her poems are named, but if you just like look up the first line of the poem, it should come up. One of my favourites is this one. The only ghost I ever saw was dressed in Michelin, so he wore no sandal on his foot and stepped like flakes of snow. His gait was soundless like the bird, but rapid like the roe. His fashions quaint, mosaic, or, haply, mistletoe. His conversation seldom, his laughter like the breeze that dies away in dimples among the pensive trees. Our interview was transient, of me himself was shy, and God forbid I look behind since that appalling day. So, obviously some heavy imagery there. She does write a lot about overarching themes of humanity, like death and eternity. This section in this book I have is called Time and Eternity. Sometimes she writes about love, life, success. Let me get up the sections here. Yeah, life, love, nature, time and eternity. Those are the overview. So if you like that type of style, you'd love Emily Dickinson and also Sylvia Plath. I don't have a book or a collection of her poetry, but I'd recommend Tulips. I studied that one in literature and it was very good and very poignant. Now, short stories that I'd like to recommend. This is kind of maybe a step up in the process, in how much comprehension you need to understand. I'd recommend Edgar Allan Poe, particularly because it's quite I think more teenagers would love him if they got into him, because it's just like, it's old Goosebumps basically. He was an interesting guy and he wrote in an interesting way, and it's just very it's like stories about mystery and supernatural happenings and murder and horror and things like that. He writes poetry as well. A lot of people have heard of The Raven. But my favorites are The Telltale Heart or The Pit and the Pendulum. The Pit and the Pendulum it has a lot of graphic imagery, so maybe don't dive straight into that one. The Telltale Heart is very unnerving though, and it's quite exciting. I might just read like the first couple of sentences, because I just want to give you a feel for what his writing style is. True. Nervous. Very, very dreadfully nervous I had been and am, but why will you say that I am mad? The disease has sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How, then, am I mad? Hearken, and observe how healthily, how calmly, I can tell you the whole story. Ooh, I can feel the shivers. I don't know if people share this excitement I have for literature, but I'm hoping someone does. Okay, now some of my personal faves of like the literary canon, one may say. First, I want to talk about classics. Now, in classics, we study ancient Greek literature and history, mostly literature and passage analysis. And it might sound boring, but it's my favourite subject. So the first book I want to recommend is The Odyssey. Now, this is the sequel to the Iliad, which is about the Battle of Troy and this 10-year war, blah, blah, blah. We don't care. We care about Odysseus and his 10-year journey home that he makes so much worse for himself in the most hilarious ways possible. And not many people acknowledge that a lot of this stuff is really funny, even if it's not meant to be. It's funny to me now. And it's about this guy's journey home to Ithaca, where his wife has to fend off all the other guys who want to marry her and become king of Ithaca. And I love it. It's a very easy read, even compared to Edgar Allan Poe. It's easier. The Robert Fagle's translation is the one that I've read, and it's really good. It's gripping. There's a lot of good characterization, and you can really see where a lot of the tropes we have, especially in hero-orientated stories, have come from. And the most amazing thing I think about this epic poem, as we call it, is that it was memorized through the oral tradition, and it says that it's written by Homer. Homer was probably just the most famous poet to memorize it, but lots of these ancient Greek poets would just say the story aloud, and it would get changed from person to person. And I think it's really cool. If you don't like it, that's fine, but it's one of my favorite books. The second classics text I want to recommend is Medea by Euripides. It's a good play, a lot of interesting layered femininity from a time when you wouldn't think that would occur, especially in ancient Greece, because, you know, women weren't citizens, whatever, lots of slaves. That is good as well. And the last ancient Greek thing I want to recommend, your daily dose of Greek, is Aristophanes, because he is known as the father of comedy. Yeah, and it was so funny. To me, like, The Frogs was one of his plays, and we read it, and my friends and I were just like laughing out loud. I don't know how it's still remained funny to this day, but it has. And that's probably why they call him the father of comedy. He started a lot of tropes like satire, political satire specifically, because he liked to make fun of, or he liked to criticize politicians without outright saying, I don't like you. Instead, he just showed them in a way that made them seem a bit silly, and I think that's hilarious. So Aristophanes, great guy. Now, let's get into, what are we getting into? We're getting into Shakespeare. I want to start off with A Midsummer Night's Dream, because that's a good It's meant to be a comedy as well. That's a good ease into Shakespeare. But if you want to go straight to it, read Macbeth, because it just has such poetic language, and you can always look up, if you don't understand the language, you can always look up, you know, like those modern day translations to help you understand it. And it's a way of writing that just can't be matched. It's so good. I'm just flicking through trying to find like one of the cool bits I can read. I would recommend looking up Sir Ian McKellen's rendition of this soliloquy, the Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow soliloquy, but I just want to read a little bit. This is at the end in Act 5 when things are not looking great for Macbeth. I don't want to spoil too much, but just know that things aren't looking great for our dearest Macbeth. And he says, "She should have died hereafter. There would have been a time for such a word. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to the last syllables of recorded time, and all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing." How's that for some ironic poetry? Oof, I love it so much. Slap goes the book. Okay, now for the nitty gritty. Emily Bronte is she's interesting, and oh boy, I'm just flicking through this book and remembering all the essays I had to write about this. Wuthering Heights is the most classic gothic melodramatic love story of all time, and it ends in tragedy, and it's about this whiny, annoying girl, Catherine, who falls in love with with someone she's not meant to, Heathcliff, and it's a tale as old as time, but it's told in such a way that you hate everyone involved. Like, it's not, you don't really want them to be together, and you don't really want to know about them, but you do at the same time. And so it's one of, like, I was talking about Medea before. That's probably one of the first introductions of an anti-hero or a protagonist that we hate. Macbeth, maybe similarly, depending on how you view him. And then Wuthering Heights, every character you just want to punch in the face. And I know some people hate that. I kind of like it, because I like the villain stories. And then they're not quite villains, but they're certainly not heroes. Everyone in the book is cruel or whiny or just uptight and arrogant, and you just go through this whole narrative of these people kind of getting what they deserve. Well, I mean, of course that's open to interpretation. And it's pretty short. It looks big on the shelf, but it's a short read. It's only a couple of volumes, I think. It's only maybe 2 volumes. I don't remember, man. Hold on. Yeah, it is only 2 volumes. I thought I got that wrong, but I got it right. And there's a foreword from Emily Bronte from Charlotte Bronte, Emily's sister, in some versions, which she literally says, like, I don't know what was going through my sister's head, just ignore her. It's so funny, oh my god. Okay, now that I've gotten through all of the hard-hitting literature stuff, this is the time for me where I get to talk about the more light-hearted stuff that I like to read just in my free time, if I don't want to think too much and I just want to enjoy myself. So first off, I haven't actually read all the way through this, but I've read the first couple of chapters and I love it, and I know from recommendations other people love it as well. Is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's obviously a very famous movie made about it, narrated by Stephen Fry, so perfection. And I just want to read the blurb so you can get a feel for it. One Thursday lunchtime, the Earth is unexpectedly demolished to make way for a new hyperspatial express route. For Arthur Dent, rescued by his best friend Ford, who, even more unexpectedly, turns out to be from another planet, this already seems rather a lot to cope with. Unfortunately, his travels have only just begun. The galaxy may offer a mind-boggling variety of ways to be blown up and insulted, but it's very hard to get a cup of tea, towel not included. It's just a funny, sci-fi space romp, so who could not love that? So if you're feeling a bit down and just want to laugh, I would read that. Yeah. I was just thinking, is it written for kids? But I don't think it is. I think if any person of any age can enjoy it. Okay, now I used to call this next section of books my guilty pleasures, but I've come to not believe in guilty pleasures as a concept, and they are just books that I enjoy, and I will not be ashamed of that. These are, if you like young adult fantasy, this is the shit. Now, a book I read a while ago that I really loved was Throne of Glass. That entire series, I just went through that. I got them all out from the library and just read one book after the other. Now, not to say that the writing style doesn't have its flaws, and it's not perfect, it's not Emily Bronte, but it is what it is, and if you enjoy that sort of writing, it's really engaging. And I think the problem with people feeling like these are guilty pleasure books is that young people and young girls in particular just get made fun of for what they like all the time. So I think we should start normalizing that it's okay to like young adult fantasy. Yeah, it's about an assassin named I was about to spoil something real big. Named Selena Sardothien, just trying to get free because she's been kept in salt mines for, doing her assassin thing. And it's really good. It's not lighthearted, there is murder, but it is a good, easy read if you're looking for something like that, just to pass the time with. And this second series, I've only been reading for a short time. My friend recommended to me. Is the first book is called Girls of Paper and Fire, and I'm halfway through the second book right now called Girls of Storm and Shadow. It's really good. Young adult fantasy again, but I would say this is slightly more well written, particularly because of its inclusion of LGBT characters, diversity of races, and I think that's partly due to the author Natasha Ngan, who I think she said she was raised in a very international culture, and she wanted more representation, and I think that's great. Be warned though, there is some sexual assault scenes, so that might not be the best. But if you are a gay or a bisexual like moi, and you want that repty representation, I'd really recommend that series. What else did I want to talk about? Oh, Sarah J. Maas, who wrote Throne of Glass, also has some other series. One is called A Court of Thorns and Roses. I didn't love the first book, but I liked the ones after that. And Crescent City, which I thought was good. It wasn't exactly my style. I think Throne of Glass was my favourite out of all the books she's written, but it was still very good. And I think that's it. Wow, I really zapped through that. I don't know if you can tell, but I get very excited about these types of things and the possibility of sharing my love of books with other people, because it's a very useful escape. Especially, I was talking about last episode, I was talking about anxiety, and a way to escape healthily is to read lots of books or listen to lots of music and just create these other worlds. I love writing as well. Writing short stories is a good way to get out your emotions, get your creative juices flowing. Poetry is a very good method for expressing your feelings in a complex way. And the thing is, there's no such thing as really bad poetry. I mean, maybe from an institutional point of view, there is, but if we're talking about aesthetic emotion, there's no point trying to define what is good poetry. There's certainly famous poetry and renowned poetry, but when it comes to writing, if you're using it as a creative outlet, then keep going, bruh. Like, it's so useful and it's such a good coping mechanism, and it's one that won't harm you. It's just a way to get your words out of your brain. Oh man, I'm a little tired. The reason I've called this Sloth Talks, by the way, is because I have a little plushy sloth sitting on my lap right now. So I hope you have a sloth, whatever that may be, because my sloth, his name is Jerome. Jerome comforts me. So yeah, thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy and go read some goddamn books, because it's holidays and why not?